before she could reach for her phone again, before he could drown the quiet in noise, before the next distraction pulled them back into the rushing current of another ordinary day, a voice broke through. Not loud, not demanding, gentle, the way rain sounds against a window pane just before dawn, when the world is still half asleep and honesty comes easier than it does in daylight. Stop, my child. Just for a moment. Just one. The voice did not shout. It did not have to. It had been waiting, patient as sunrise, for this exact second when the heart was open enough to finally hear. There was a woman named Sarah who had been running for years, not on any road, not in any park, but in the way that modern people run, carrying invisible weight from one appointment to the next, from one worry to the next, from one sleepless night into another morning that looked exactly like the one before it. And there was a man named Michael who sat in his car for 11 minutes every evening before going inside his own house, because inside the house were conversations he didn't know how to start. And out here in the quiet of the parked car, the silence at least asked nothing of him. And there were thousands of others tired, searching, half hoping and half afraid to hope, who in this one particular moment felt something they couldn't explain. A pull, a pause, a single breath that felt like it mattered. God saw every one of them. God sees you. He knew what was weighing on the heart long before the mouth found words for it. He knew about the sleepless nights staring at ceilings that offered no answers. He knew about the prayers whispered in desperation, the kind that felt like throwing stones into a dark well and never hearing them land. He knew about the smile worn in public and the exhaustion hidden carefully behind it, the one that only came down late at night when the children were in bed and the house was quiet, and there was no one left to perform for. My child, he said softly, I know how busy your life has become. I know the world moves fast and it pulls you with it, and some days you cannot remember the last time you truly stopped. Not stopped to scroll, not stopped to check something, really stopped, and let yourself be still. That is all I am asking for today. Not an hour, not a long conversation, just 1 minute, one honest minute of your attention. Stay with me. The world had filled itself with motion, with noise, with an endless parade of things demanding to be seen and heard and responded to immediately, and in the middle of all that noise, the soul had learned to quiet itself down, to tuck itself into corners, to survive on scraps of peace stolen from gaps between obligations. People had forgotten what it felt like to simply be present with the one who made them, not because they stopped loving God, but because life had slowly, steadily, almost imperceptibly buried that love under layers of urgency. The bills were urgent. The deadlines were urgent. The children's schedules were urgent. The fear about next month, next year, the next thing that might go wrong, all of it urgent, all of it loud, all of it crowding the inner space where God had always meant to dwell. And still he called. He never stopped calling. His voice was not competing with the noise. It was simply there, underneath all of it, steady and warm, the way a heartbeat is steady even when the body is under pressure. He was not going to force his way in. He was asking, gently, earnestly, with all the patience of eternity behind him, do not walk away. I have something for you today, something your soul needs to hear, something meant specifically for you, spoken across whatever distance you think exists between us, because that distance is smaller than you know. There were moments in Sarah's life when she could feel it, that quiet beckoning, that sense that something sacred was trying to reach her. She would feel it in the shower sometimes, when the hot water ran over her shoulders and the noise of the house was muffled and there was nowhere to be for exactly 4 minutes. She would feel it in the car, at a red light, when a particular song came on the radio and her throat would tighten with something she couldn't name. She had learned to push past those moments. She had learned that stopping meant feeling, and feeling sometimes meant falling apart, and she did not have time to fall apart. God looked at her in those moments with infinite tenderness, not with judgment, not with disappointment, with the kind of love that understands exactly what it sees and loves it anyway. He was not asking her to fall apart. He was asking her to let him hold the pieces. That is all he has ever asked. And today, he was asking again. He had been watching not the way the world watches, not with cameras or algorithms or the cold logic of data, but with eyes that see the interior of a life, the rooms that no one else is invited into, the corners where grief gets stored because there is nowhere else to put it. There was a father named Daniel who had not cried in 11 years, not because he was not in pain, but because he had told himself that crying was a luxury he could not afford. There were the tears he didn't allow himself, the ones that pressed behind his eyes on the night his business failed, and he sat at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, going through numbers that didn't add up, no matter how many times he ran them. There were nights of quiet devastation that looked like ordinary evenings from the outside. Families gathered around dinner tables, while one person in the room carried a weight so heavy it had changed the shape of their posture. God saw, God sees. "My child," the voice said, "I have seen your sleepless nights. I have seen you lying in the dark with your eyes open, watching the ceiling, turning the same fear over and over in your mind the way a hand worries a stone in a pocket. I have seen the mornings you got out of bed not because you felt ready, but because you had no other choice, because people depended on you and that dependence was both your anchor and your burden. I have seen the tears you cried in places where no one could witness them, in the shower, in the car, in a bathroom stall during a lunch break when the weight of everything became briefly, completely unbearable. I have seen every one of those tears, and I want you to know something. Not one of them fell without my notice. Not a single one. There is no grief in your life so private that it was hidden from me. There is no fear so small that I dismissed it. There is no night so long and so dark that my eyes were not on you through every hour of it. I have seen everything, and I am still here, and my love for you has not diminished by a single degree. The feeling of being unseen is one of the deepest human pains, not just unknown, unseen. Passing through life with the sense that no one truly perceives you, that your inner world is invisible, that you could disappear from the inside out, and the people around you would only notice the absence of your function, not the absence of you. It is a loneliness that exists even in crowded rooms, even in marriages, even in families where there is love but not enough language for the inner life. People carry this pain for years. They carry it so long that they begin to believe it is simply the truth, that they are, at their core, unknowable, unreachable, fundamentally alone. And this is the lie that God had been working against from the very beginning. From before you were born, He knew you. He knew the exact configuration of your fears and your longings and your quiet hopes, the ones you don't speak aloud because speaking them aloud makes them vulnerable. He knew the version of yourself you've always wished you could be. He knew the version you're afraid you might actually be. And He loved both. He loves all of it. There is nothing in you that surprises Him, and there is nothing in you that makes Him turn away. When the thought whispers that no one understands you, He answers with everything He is. I understand everything. I have always understood. I understood you before you understood yourself, and I have never left. The world, God knew, was not neutral. It had not simply become busy and distracted by accident. There was a deliberate opposition at work in the noise, in the relentless overstimulation, in the way human beings had been conditioned to fear silence, the way they fear the dark, not because silence is dangerous, but because silence is honest. And in the stillness, things become clear that the enemy of the soul does not want made clear. There was a plan behind the chaos, and it was not God's plan. His plan had always been intimacy, a father walking with his children in the cool of the evening, near enough to speak, near enough to listen. What opposed that plan did not need to destroy a person outright. It simply needed to keep them occupied, distracted, scrolling past the sacred, drowning the still small voice in a flood of notifications and anxieties and manufactured urgencies that felt important but left nothing lasting behind. A young man named Ethan had once prayed every morning without fail. Not long prayers, sometimes only a few sentences, barely a paragraph, just a brief conversation before the day began. But those few sentences had been the hinge of his whole life. They had been the thing that oriented him, and then, gradually, without any single moment he could point to, the mornings had gotten shorter, and the phone had gotten faster, and the news had gotten louder, and the prayers had gotten shorter, then occasional, then absent. He still believed in God. He thought about God sometimes, the way you think about a friend you haven't called in months, with warmth and a low-grade guilt and a vague intention to reach out soon. But soon kept not arriving. And in the space where that morning conversation used to live, something else had moved in, not anything dramatic. Just the low hum of anxiety that never quite turned off. the sense that something was missing that he could not name. The enemy does not always come with a roar. More often it comes with a distraction, a notification, a headline, a fear, something small that leads to something smaller, and the path back to the sacred becomes overgrown from disuse. The battle for the soul, God said, begins with attention, not with behavior, not with big dramatic moral failures. It begins with where the eyes look and where the mind rests, and what a person chooses to dwell on when they have a moment of freedom. The enemy understands this better than most people do. It is why the noise is so constant, why the world has engineered itself to be impossible to ignore, why peace has become something people have to schedule and protect and fight for, rather than something they simply inhabit. The worry that arrives at breakfast. The headline engineered to provoke outrage before the first cup of coffee is finished. The comparison that happens automatically when images of other people's lives appear, carefully curated, polished to an impossible standard, making an ordinary faithful life feel somehow insufficient. Every one of these small intrusions costs something. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, the way water wears stone gradually, over time, until the shape of the interior life is different from what it was before, and the person cannot quite remember when the change began. God was not without power in this fight. He was, in fact, the author of the very capacity for stillness that human beings could not shake off entirely, no matter how buried it became. That longing for quiet, for meaning, for something real that was his fingerprint, and it never fully disappeared. It would surface at 2 a.m, or at a funeral, or on a day when everything went right and the person still felt, inexplicably, that something was missing. That persistent, unreasoning sense that there was supposed to be more, not more success, not more acquisition, but more depth, more presence, more of whatever it was that made a life feel like it was actually being lived rather than simply processed. That ache was not a malfunction. It was an invitation. That was the call. That was him. He had never stopped calling. The question was only whether the heart was ready to listen, and readiness, he had always known, was not something that required perfection. It only required willingness. A single yes, however small and uncertain, was enough to begin. She had been carrying it for so long that she had stopped noticing the weight. This is what happens with burdens carried long enough. They stop feeling like foreign objects and start feeling like parts of the self. The debt that kept her awake no longer felt like a crisis. It felt like her identity. The marriage that had grown cold no longer felt like a problem to solve. It felt like the shape of her life. The health scare she hadn't told anyone about, the diagnosis she'd received on a Tuesday afternoon and driven home from in a stunned silence, had become just another stone in the collection she carried quietly from room to room. She told herself she was handling it. She told herself she was strong. Strength, she had been taught, meant not asking for help. Strength meant managing, and she was managing right up until the moment her hands began to shake while making coffee one morning, and she stood at the kitchen counter and understood that she was not actually managing at all. She was surviving, and barely even that. You were never meant to carry this alone. The voice reached her in that kitchen the way light reaches a room when someone finally opens the curtains, not with force, but with a gentle inevitability, filling every corner. God was not a distant administrator of rules and consequences. He was a father, and no good father watches his child struggle under a weight they were never designed to carry without moving to help. Give me the debt that wakes you up at 3 a.m. Give me the fear about the diagnosis. Give me the marriage you don't know how to save. Give me the child you're losing sleep over, the one who's made choices you don't understand, and whose distance feels like a wound that won't close. Give me the job that is draining the life from you, the one you dread Sunday evenings because Monday is coming. Give me all of it, not because you are weak, not because you have failed, but because you were designed for partnership with God, not for solitary suffering. The load was never meant to be yours alone to carry. It was always meant to be shared with the one who has infinite capacity for it, the one who holds galaxies in position and still counts the hairs on your head and still knows your name. There was a woman named Grace, and the name had felt like a cruel joke for years because she had not known much of it. She had prayed and felt nothing. She had trusted and been disappointed. She had handed over her burdens in prayer and then, because nothing seemed to change, had quietly picked them back up again, because at least when she was carrying them, she felt like she had some control. This is the hidden logic of human suffering. We would rather carry what is heavy than surrender what is familiar. The burden becomes a strange kind of companion, but God's invitation to give him the weight was not a transaction with guaranteed immediate results. It was a relationship. It was a trust built over time, and trust required exactly what its name implied, the willingness to release what you were holding, even in the dark, even before the outcome was clear. She was learning, slowly, painfully, beautifully. She was learning that laying something at God's feet and leaving it there was not weakness. It was the bravest thing a person could do. Close your eyes. Not forever, not even for long. Just for this moment, in this place where you are right now. Let the outside world become briefly, mercifully, quieter. Take a breath in, slow, deliberate, the kind of breath that travels all the way down before it comes back up. Hold it for just a second, and release it. Feel what happens in your chest when you do that. Feel the small, almost involuntary loosening that happens in the shoulders, in the jaw, in the place behind the eyes where tension lives so constantly that most people have forgotten it is tension at all, and simply call it the way things feel. God is in this breath. He is in this moment of stillness. He is not far away and waiting to be reached by the right combination of words or rituals or effort. He is here, right here, as close as the air in your lungs. Imagine a light, warm, golden, the kind that comes through windows in late afternoon when the world looks briefly like something worth loving. Imagine it beginning at the crown of your head and moving slowly downward, touching everywhere it goes with something that feels like permission. Permission to exhale, permission to set things down, permission to exist in this moment, not as the person with responsibilities and failures and fears and a long list of things still undone, but simply as a child of the living God, held in a love that requires nothing from you in this second except your presence. The light moves through your shoulders and they drop, just slightly, just enough. It moves through your chest, and something unlocks there, not dramatically, not with any great emotional display, but gently, the way a knot loosens when you stop pulling against it, and instead let it be worked free. It moves through your hands and you feel them relax in your lap. This is what peace feels like, when it is not earned or performed or maintained through sheer force of will, but simply received. This is what it means to rest in God, not to stop thinking or feeling or experiencing the reality of your life, but to experience all of it from within a presence larger than any of it, a presence that does not require you to be anything other than exactly what you are. There is healing in this stillness, real healing, the kind that happens below the surface of behavior and circumstance, the kind that begins in the deepest places and works its way outward over time. You do not have to understand how it works. You only have to be willing to be here. God will handle the rest. He has always been better at the rest. There is a particular quality to this kind of stillness that the world does not sell and cannot manufacture. It is not the stillness of exhaustion, where the body simply gives out from overuse. It is not the false quiet of distraction, where the mind is momentarily occupied with something pleasant, while the underlying fear waits patiently for its return. This is a different quality, entirely an active stillness, a presence that is somehow simultaneously restful and alive, the way deep water is both still on the surface and full of motion below. In this stillness, things become true that are always true but rarely felt. You are enough. You have always been enough. Not by your own construction, not because of what you have accomplished or how successfully you have managed to hold yourself together, but because you were made by a God who does not make inadequate things and who has never looked at you not once, not in any moment of your life, and found you lacking in the way that the voice of fear and shame insists that he has. That voice is not his. His voice sounds like this: "You are mine, and I am pleased with you, and you do not need to earn what I have already given. Stay here for another breath. Stay as long as you need to. He is not in a hurry. He made eternity. Time, here with him, works differently. You have wondered if he forgot you. There have been moments, honest moments, the ones you'd never say aloud in a church building, but that lived in the private back country of your faith, where you looked at your life and the circumstances that hadn't changed, despite the prayers you'd offered, and a small dark thought had surfaced. Perhaps you were overlooked. Perhaps the blessings were going to others and your name had somehow been passed over, your prayers filed in some divine administrative backlog and never processed. Perhaps you were not the kind of person that good things happen to. The thought was painful. It was also completely wrong. Think of a man named Noah, who built something enormous and inexplicable on dry ground, while everyone around him watched with a mixture of pity and contempt. He worked on that ark for decades, with no sign of rain, with nothing but a word from God and the stubbornness to keep going. Think of the waiting, not the triumphant waiting of a man who can see the clouds gathering, but the bewildering waiting of a man who can see only sunshine and mockery, and the long, slow passage of years in which nothing visible changed. And then it rained, and then everything God had promised him became real, all at once, in a way that changed everything. Think of a young man who could have been called James, sold into slavery by the people who should have loved him most, thrown into a pit and then a foreign country and then a prison, and at every point the promise God had given him must have seemed not just delayed but dead, 3 times over. And then the moment came, not gradually, not slowly, but in a sudden reversal so complete that it could only have been God's doing, and the man who had been a prisoner became the second most powerful person in a nation, and the very brothers who had betrayed him came to him for rescue. Think of a shepherd king named David, who was anointed for a throne he would not sit on for another decade, who spent those years running for his life through wilderness and caves, who must have asked in the cold of those caves whether the promise meant anything at all, and then the throne was his. Delay is not denial. God is not slow because he has forgotten. He is slow the way a surgeon is slow, with a precision that serves the final outcome rather than the immediate comfort. The story he is writing in your life has chapters you have not read yet. There are pages coming that will make the waiting make sense, not in a way that erases the pain of it, but in a way that reveals its purpose. What looked like abandonment will reveal itself as positioning. What felt like silence will turn out to have been preparation. You are not forgotten. You have never been forgotten. Your name is known in heaven with the same certainty with which it was known the day you were born, and the story God began in you is not finished. Not even close. Behind the scenes of your life, in the invisible workings of providence that you do not have access to, but that are nonetheless real and in motion, God is busy on your behalf. There are doors being positioned. There are people being moved into place. There are circumstances being arranged in patterns that, from your current vantage point, look like nothing at all or worse, look like obstacles, but that from above look like exactly what they are, preparation for something better than you have let yourself imagine. The answer to the prayer you stopped praying because it seemed too much to hope for is on its way. The breakthrough you needed 3 years ago is still coming, arriving at a time that will serve you better than 3 years ago would have, arriving in a form that fits who you have become through the very waiting you resented. There was a woman named Abigail who had prayed for restoration for so long that she had finally, quietly, stopped. Not because she had given up believing in God, but because the distance between what she hoped for and what she saw had become too painful to hold continuously in her hands. She had set the prayer down like something too hot to keep holding. She had gone on with her life, not joylessly, but carefully, guarding herself against expectations that kept getting disappointed. And she did not know, could not have known, that in the very season when she had released her grip on the prayer, the answer was closest. She could not see what was moving in her direction. She could only feel the quiet of the aftermath of hope, and in that quiet she did not know she was being heard more deeply than she had ever been. There is a particular cruelty to being close to your breakthrough without knowing it, but God in His mercy does not leave people to suffer that particular cruelty without equipping them for it. He gives endurance to those who are almost there. He strengthens the legs of the runner who cannot see the finish line. He shores up the faith that is almost spent and carries the person through the last difficult mile of what they could not have walked on their own. What seems impossible today may become your testimony tomorrow. The thing that has been the source of your tears may become the source of someone else's healing when you stand on the other side of it and tell the story of how God came through. Do not close your eyes to the future. It does not look like the past. It does not even look like the present. It looks like something you haven't seen yet, and God is asking you to trust the unseen with the same certainty you give to the air you breathe, invisible, but sustaining you with every breath. The miracle was never in the absence of impossibility. It was in what God does with impossibility when a soul stays turned toward Him long enough to see it. He has not run out of miracles. He has not allocated the last of His power to the previous generation. The same God who split the Red Sea is the God who is paying attention to your situation right now, in this very moment, with the same focus and intention and love that He has always brought to every moment of impossible transformation in human history. Your name is on His list. Your situation is known to Him. Your breakthrough is in motion. Stay. He understood, with a tenderness that asked nothing in return, that it had not been easy to keep believing. He understood that the faith which had once felt natural and effortless had, somewhere along the years, begun to require effort, real effort, the kind that costs something, the kind that sometimes left a person feeling more spent than strengthened. He knew about the Sunday mornings when sitting in a place of worship had felt like going through motions rather than encountering the living God. He knew about the moments when the doubts surfaced not casually, not intellectually, but in the gut, in the place where real fear lives, and the doubts said things like, "What if none of this is real? What if you've been talking to silence all this time?" He knew because he had watched every person he loved wrestle with these questions, and he had never once condemned anyone for the wrestle. Wrestling with God was not the opposite of faith. It was sometimes the deepest expression of it. But now he was asking, not commanding, not demanding, not issuing an ultimatum, simply asking, with all the gentleness of a father who has been waiting by the window, "Trust me again." Not trust Him perfectly. Not trust Him without questions, or without the memory of the times things didn't go the way you hoped. Not trust Him with every uncertainty immediately resolved and every doubt neatly packaged away. Just trust Him again, one more time. The way you trust the ground to hold you when you step, even though you've never tested the exact composition of the soil at that precise point. The ground has held you every time before, and God has carried you through every storm before, even the ones that felt unsurvivable while you were in them. You are here. The storms did not finish you. He did not let them finish you. Pray again, not the long, carefully constructed prayer that sounds right. The short, raw, real prayer that costs something to say. The one that begins with, "I don't know what I'm doing," or "God, I'm scared," or simply, "Here I am, and I'm not okay, but I'm here." Those are the prayers He prizes. Those are the ones that come from the deepest rooms of the self, not from the performance of faith, but from the reality of it, the bruised and imperfect and beautiful reality of a human being trying to hold on to something infinite with finite hands. He receives those prayers differently than He receives the polished ones. Not that any prayer goes unheard, but the raw ones arrive with no pretense between them and the one receiving them, and there is something about that directness, that honesty, that nakedness before God that moves things in the spiritual realm that carefully worded religious language sometimes cannot. The walls come down, the guard drops, and when the guard drops, the grace can come in without obstruction. Stand up again. You have fallen before and risen before. You will rise again. The ground is not the end of your story. It has never been the end of the story for anyone who kept their face turned toward God, even from the floor. There is no position too low for God to reach. There is no distance too great for His voice to travel. There is no failure so complete that it places a person outside the reach of redemption and restoration. The enemy wants you to believe otherwise. The enemy wants the fall to feel final, wants the shame of it to become a wall between you and the God who is already moving in your direction. Do not believe that lie. Do not let yesterday's pain steal tomorrow's miracle. The pain was real. The loss was real. The disappointment was real. And none of it has the final word. God has the final word. He has always had the final word, and the word He speaks over your life is not defeat. It is not abandonment. It is not over. The word He speaks over your life is beloved. It is chosen. It is not finished yet. And now, in this space, in this holy and ordinary moment, wherever you are sitting or standing or lying in the dark, receive this. Let it come over you not as words on a page or sounds in your ears, but as something living, something that carries weight and warmth and the specific gravity of truth spoken directly to you by the one who has known your name from before you had one. This is a blessing, not a formula, not a performance, a genuine, specific, Personal blessing spoken over your life today. Peace deep, foundational, the kind that does not depend on circumstances or resolutions or anything changing on the outside. Peace be to your mind. Let the anxious thoughts that loop and circle and return, no matter how many times you set them aside, begin to quiet, not by your effort alone, but by the arrival of something larger. A peace that passes the ability of the mind to fully explain. A peace that settles in, despite the unsettled things. A peace that says, you are held, and the one who holds you does not tire, does not waver, does not release his grip. That peace belongs to you. Receive it. Healing full, real, beginning at whatever level you need it most. Healing be to your body, to the places where sickness has established a foothold, to the systems and cells and unseen interior workings of the body you live in. Let the God who designed every intricate mechanism of human life speak into those places with authority and intention. He is not surprised by what your body is carrying. He is not limited by what medicine does or does not have answers to. Healing is his character, not just his capability. Ask him for it. Believe that he hears. Wisdom clear, timely, arriving when it is most needed. Wisdom be to your decisions. For the choice that feels impossible, for the path that splits in both directions look uncertain, for the conversation you don't know how to begin, and the situation you don't know how to resolve, let the wisdom that comes from above, not from below, guide your steps. He will not leave you guessing when the answer matters. He will not withhold direction from a heart that genuinely wants to go the right way. Protection strong, vigilant, extending beyond what any human watchfulness could provide. Protection be over your family, over the children who are growing up in a world that does not always wish them well, over the relationships that are precious and fragile and worth guarding, over the people you love who sometimes make choices that put them in harm's way. Cover them, Lord. Surround them with what only you can provide. Let no weapon formed against them find its mark without your permission. Let your angels be stationed at the thresholds of their lives. Opportunity new, unexpected, arriving in forms you might not immediately recognize. Opportunity be to your future. The closed doors are not the last doors. There are doors ahead that have not yet come into view. Doors that will open in seasons you haven't reached yet. Doors that will feel like the answer to prayers you made years ago. Be alert for them. Do not miss them because you are looking backward, or because you are so focused on the door that closed that you cannot see the corridor it was protecting you from. God's redirections are not punishments. They are navigations, the hand of a father who can see the whole map steering a child who can only see one step at a time. What he closes with purpose. What he opens at exactly the right time, when you are exactly the person you need to be in order to walk through it well. He is not done with you, not remotely close to done. The best chapters of what he is doing in your story are still ahead. Receive that today, not as a sentiment, but as a fact. The author of your life has not run out of good material for the chapters that remain. She did not know, as she sat in the quiet that had fallen over her after the blessing, that this moment would stay with her. Not in a sentimental way, not as a memory she filed away and took out occasionally, but in the way that genuine encounters with the sacred stay with a person, woven into the tissue of who they are, changing something at a level below conscious articulation, making them slightly different from who they had been before. Something had shifted. She could not have explained it precisely. The debt was still there. The diagnosis had not changed. The marriage still needed work. The child was still estranged. But something at the center of her had reoriented, the way a compass needle swings true north when the interference is removed. She had been found, not by a feeling. Feelings come and go and cannot be trusted to last. By a presence, by the God who had been there all along, and whose permanence was not dependent on her awareness of it. This is what he wanted her to take with her. Not a temporary emotional lift that faded by Wednesday. Not a religious experience she'd need to replicate in order to feel okay. Something that would hold. He had not abandoned her in the past, even on the days when she had been most certain he had. Every valley she had walked through with company she had sometimes been too consumed by fear to notice. Looking back, really looking back, with honesty, she could see it. The moment that arrived just in time. The person who said exactly what she needed to hear. The door that closed, and whose closing had redirected her towards something better. the strength she found in herself that she had not had before the difficulty and could not have developed without it. God had been in every one of those moments. He was in this one. He would be in every one that followed. He was not going to announce his presence with spectacle every time. He was not always going to send the burning bush or part the sea or cause the walls to fall with a single shout. More often, he would show up in the ordinary, in the phone call that came at exactly the right moment, in the stranger who offered exactly the right word, in the morning, when the fear was quieter than it had been the night before, in the small, undeniable grace of another day to try again. He was not distant. He had never been distant. Distance was the illusion that suffering created, and he had been working against that illusion since before the first prayer was ever prayed. He is still leading, even now, even today, even in the circumstances that feel the most static and the most stuck. He is leading. The path is real even when it is not visible. The destination is real even when it is not yet in sight. He has never once led anyone he loved into a place from which he could not also lead them out. That is his record. That is his track record across the length of all of human history, and it holds for you, for your situation, for this exact season of your life that feels so uncertain and so long. He is leading. He is present. He is listening. He has not stopped. He will not stop. There is nothing you could say to him in the raw, honest, desperate language of the real situation that would make him pull back. Nothing. No confession, no admission of failure, no honest articulation of doubt or anger or exhaustion will send him away. He is not fragile. He can hold the weight of your most honest moment without flinching. He would rather have your honest desperation than your performed composure. He would rather have you arrive at him out of breath and empty-handed than not arrive at all. Come as you are. Come with the mess. Come with the questions. Come with the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide. The ones that feel unacceptable. The ones you've been managing from a safe distance, because getting too close to them is dangerous. Come with all of it. He is not surprised by any of it. He is not going to be. He knew every detail of who you are before you knew your own name, and he loved what he saw, and that love has not wavered. You gave him 1 minute today. You stopped when everything in the rush of the ordinary world was pulling you forward, and you gave him 1 minute. That is not a small thing. That is an act of faith, however small, however tentative, however uncertain. And God does not despise small beginnings. He is the God who built oceans out of 6 words. He is the God who made the world from nothing with the breath of his intention. He can do extraordinary things with 1 minute of an open heart. He will walk with you now through every minute that follows through, the minute you go back to the thing that was worrying you before, and he will be in that minute too. Through the minute you have the hard conversation, and he will give you words. Through the minute you get the news you've been waiting for, or the news you were dreading, and he will be the first presence to arrive in that minute before you've even processed it. Through the minutes of joy that are coming, and they are coming, and he will be there laughing with you, celebrating with you, loving the sight of you flourishing the way a father loves the sight of his child thriving. Do not go back to the noise without carrying this with you. Do not let the rush of the next hour completely overwrite what happened in this one. Write it somewhere if you need to. Speak it aloud to yourself in the car. Return to it on the hard days when the evidence seems to point in the opposite direction from everything that was said here. This is not just comfort for today. This is true structurally, permanently, fundamentally true, whether you feel it or not. Whether circumstances confirm it or not, whether the day that follows this moment is easy or one of the hardest you've ever faced. The truth of God's presence does not rise and fall with the weather of your circumstances. It is fixed. It is certain. It is the most stable thing in any universe. When the anxiety returns, and it will return, because that is the nature of living in a human body in an uncertain world, remember this. Remember that there is a voice underneath the noise. Remember that the voice is not accusing or condemning or threatening. It is calling, gently, persistently, with a patience that has no end. It has been calling since before you were born. It will keep calling. And every time you stop, however briefly, and turn your face toward it, something happens that no other moment in your day can replicate. Something in the eternal realm moves on your behalf. Something in the invisible workings of a life guided by God shifts in a direction that will matter. You will not always be able to see it happening. Most of the time, you will not see it. But it is happening. He is working. He is moving. He is committed to your story in a way that will not be undone by anything you do or fail to do, by any season you go through, by any chapter of your life that looks from the inside like nothing but loss and confusion. He is the God who makes beauty from ashes. He is the God who opens rivers in the desert. He is the God who calls things that are not as though they are, and what He calls into your life, no power in heaven or earth can permanently prevent. If this has reached something in you today, say amen. Not as a performance, not as a formula that unlocks a divine vending machine. Say it the way it was always meant to be said, as an agreement. As a yes. As a small act of the will that aligns itself with the movement of God over your life and says, I believe it, I receive it, I'm here. And share this with someone you know who is struggling. Not because the sharing earns anything, but because you know someone who is sitting in their own silence right now, carrying their own weight, feeling their own version of unseen and unheard, and this message might be the thing that reaches them in the right minute of the right day. You were reached today. Now reach. That is how the love of God has always moved through the world, not through spectacle alone, but through ordinary people who encountered something real and couldn't keep it to themselves. I love you, my child. Not the idea of you, not the version of you that has everything together. You specific, complicated, tired, hoping, afraid, beloved you. Keep your eyes on me, not on the storm, not on the mountain, not on the problem or the person or the circumstance that seems bigger than anything you've ever faced. Keep your eyes on me, and I will guide your path, every step of it, every step of the way. I am not going anywhere. I have never gone anywhere. I am here, and I am with you, and I will be with you in every minute that follows this one, all the way to the end of your story and into the beginning of the one that comes after, the one where none of the things that are hurting you now have any power at all, the one where you will finally understand everything that right now remains mysterious, the one where you will see me face to face and know, in that first eternal moment, that it was worth it. Every difficult day, every unanswered question, every step taken in the dark by faith and not by sight, every morning you got out of bed when you didn't feel like it, every prayer you offered when you weren't sure anyone was listening, every act of quiet faithfulness that no one around you saw or celebrated or acknowledged. I saw every one. I wrote every one down. And in that final moment of complete understanding, when all of it becomes clear, you will know that nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the waiting, not the years that felt like they were going nowhere. All of it was being woven into something. All of it was part of the plan. You are loved. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. Go now and carry this with you. He is still leading. Even now, even today, even in the circumstances that feel the most static and the most stuck, He is leading. The path is real, even when it is not visible. The destination is real, even when it is not yet in sight. He has never once led anyone He loved into a place from which He could not also lead them out. That is His record. That is His track record across the length of all of human history, and it holds for you, for your situation, for this exact season of your life that feels so uncertain and so long. He is leading, He is present, He is listening. There is nothing you could say to Him in the raw, honest, desperate language of the real situation that would make Him pull back. Nothing. He can hold the weight of your most honest moment without flinching. He would rather have your honest desperation than your performed composure. Come as you are. Come with the mess. He is not surprised by any of it. He knew every detail of who you are before you knew your own name, and He loved what He saw. Amen.